So the Donald Trump clown show continues, and today we get a real inside look at his mental state. Let's just jump right in.
By law.
And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute
well,
over that.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Okay, so what's going on is he tweeted us out a few days ago, basically. It was a picture that was clearly photoshopped. This was from Garcia's hand, and you can see here it's got different symbols on it, and then the Photoshop of the MS-13 doesn't match, right? You can literally see it. Now Trump actually thought this was real, and he was convinced that that was part of his tattoos. Let's have a look at more of this, and again, this look at his mental state where he actually starts to believe the stuff that he puts out that is frankly not true. Listen.
He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattoo.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped.
That was Photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
See, and I got the picture right there. So they didn't show it in the news. They should have, because, again, Trump actually believes this nonsense. And it's a good reminder that Trump has a bunch of worm tongues around him, basically, right? Staffers will just hand him stuff. You know, where or who is, making these photos that they're handing them, who knows, right? Because they actually address that, and I'll show you in a moment here. And the problem, though, is that Trump is frankly just believes whatever. He's kind of like your old grandpa that believes whatever fake news is on X or on Facebook. And you guys all have these old grandpas or old uncles or aunts or grandmas. To be perfectly fair, it could be anyone, or it could be young people, right? For that matter. There's some people out there that just believe whatever fake thing it is, as long as they want it to be true. But literally, I'm showing you the picture for yourself. You can see it's photoshopped, but he's convinced that it's not.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir. I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador,
So how do you address that as a reporter? I mean, you can hit the point a couple of times. He's just going to get angry and mad. But yes, you probably should have showed him the photo. This is actually Fox News addressing the issue. Have a listen.
Also not revealing whether the U.S. made a formal request to El Salvador's government for the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States.
The president sparring with ABC over the man's alleged gang affiliation.
He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattoo.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped.
Terry, you can't do that.
Now, the president previously shared a photo of the man's tattoos on social media, which had MS-13 markers above each corresponding tattoo, which were a marijuana leaf, a smiley face, a cross, and a skull. The White House has not explained who added the markers or even acknowledged that they were added, but they said there's no dispute the man's tattoos signify MS-13. Brett.
Jackie, another topic. Today, the president referred in that cabinet meeting to his defense.
So I just wanted you guys to see like how Fox News addresses it, right? So they're talking about and you can see the picture yourself that it's, added on there, Photoshop. They're calling it markers, right? And then they'll just say, well, the White House hasn't really acknowledged it at all. So this is where you can tell whether or not someone's being an honest journalist or not by just saying, hey, the president's putting out falsehoods. But again, Fox News doesn't do that stuff. You guys know this. They don't question the president, these kind of things. But you have to see it for yourself how Looney Tunes this stuff is. And especially for people who are watching around the world, who are watching in shock. And frankly, I know we make jokes about this stuff, but when you see it, you're like, how is this guy even president? It's because, it's a function of the sort of propaganda, again, your Fox Newsy, it could be your YouTuber people type of things that promote the stuff as being real. And any honest person will just come out and say, hey, Trump's not telling the truth. That's all you got to do. And you'll live with a clean conscience and things will be better. But, you know, we live in a world where it's filled with cheerleaders, unfortunately. So let's watch a little bit more. You can see.
I talked to him. Ukraine was the apple of his eye. I think he wanted the whole country.
You've said for months.
Because of me, I do believe that he's willing to stop the fighting. Don't forget.
So we're talking about Putin now and Ukraine.
This
is you think Vladimir Putin wants peace?
I think he does, yes. I think he does. I think
even with the raining missiles
I think he really, his dream was to take over the whole country. I think because of me, he's not going to do that.
Do you trust him?
I think.
Do you trust him?
I don't trust you. I don't trust a lot of people. I don't trust you. Look at you. You come in all shooting for bear. You're so happy to do the interview.
I am
and
happy.
Then you start hitting me with fake questions. You start telling me that a guy whose hand is covered with a tattoo doesn't have the tattoo. You know. I mean, you're being dishonest.
No, I'm not.
No,
I am not.
Do I trust? I don't.
So I actually think Trump believes his own lies. So that's why I mentioned the phrasing worm tongue when you watch this kind of stuff. And, you know, he's also, you know, the question was, do you trust Putin? And then Trump's answer is like, I don't trust you, the reporter, right? And he'll never say a bad thing about Putin. And the question's always been, what does Putin have on Trump? What's going on with that? This is an article that came out of Bloomberg, April 28th, 2025. If you want to find it, you can. I'll just say this. They did a really good job. It says here, Trump tells Americans what Putin wants them to hear. And basically, they give multiple examples of just the last couple of months to where basically the things that Trump says sort of mimics the stuff that Putin says. And like I said, I'm just showing you different ones on that, be it martial law, was this one NATO and Ukraine, another example about, you know, Zelensky, any number of things, okay? There's multiple examples. I just pulled up a few quickly. The thing is, though, that you have to understand, there's two ways you can look at it. One is Trump spends all his time on X, you know, Elon Musk's platform that's filled with Russian bots, et cetera, and Russian propaganda. And he just, you know, mimics that kind of stuff. Or he's being fed stuff by either his advisors that are working within interest of Russia's messaging, or otherwise, you know, he's some sort of asset of Russia. This kind of things I don't know. I'm just honest with you. I don't know how or what's going on in his head, but we can see the final result. His rhetoric matches Putin's, and it's sad to see. This is the kind of stuff, too, I've made several videos on it. I just bring this stuff up because it's important to talk about. Many YouTubers were paid by Russia. I mentioned this before on the channel. I'll mention it again. I was offered to appear on Russia Today. Basically, Russia propaganda reached out to me in my channel and said, hey, would you like to do it? And I said, no. So not everyone, you know, is all about money all the time. Not everyone is all about cheerleading or you know, going to the highest bidder. I said no. I just want to make that clear. But not everyone is like me. Some people are like Trump. Whether or not he's receiving anything from Russia, I don't know. I'm honest with you, I don't know. But I do know, you know, he's spouting again messages that are similar to Russia, and he's also spouting off a bunch of nonsense regarding, you know, stuff that staff gives him, and he believes it wholeheartedly. This is why I was thinking that he actually believes his own lies, because he's arguing for it very, you know, aggressively. Let's watch a little bit more here.
It did happen because of incompetent people.
Last question on this.
But it never should have happened.
If there's no peace deal, will the U.S. cut off military aid to Ukraine?
I don't want to tell you that. I'm not going to tell you whether or not I would or not. I want to leave that as a big fat secret because I don't want to ruin a negotiation.
That'd be a big fat secret. I want to tell me a big fat secret. What are we talking about?
I'd be worried.
I will tell you, I was not happy when I saw Putin shooting missiles into a few towns and cities. And that was not something that I like seeing, and I thought it was inappropriate. But I think the whole war is inappropriate. Okay. Again, it's a war that shouldn't have happened. This is a war that if the election weren't rigged, and it was totally rigged, the 2020 election, if it weren't rigged, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have had the embarrassment.
He just goes on and on.
He's
a raving lunatic, to be pretty perfectly frank. And I actually think he believes his own lies. So that would put you in the delusional dementia camp. That's my opinion on that. This is what's going on right now. It was just announced the U.S. and the Ukraine just signed a deal regarding the, you know, rare earth minerals and the reconstruction. We've talked about this before and several times in the channel. It's been hammering out, and I guess finally they signed something. Here's Bessent making the announcement. Have a watch.
Thanks to President Trump's tireless efforts to secure a lasting peace, I am glad to announce the signing of today's historic economic partnership agreement between the United States and Ukraine, establishing the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund.
This is about money, okay? So they're talking about like how can we get get money into whatever fund that will funnel that money to whatever reconstruction companies to rebuild Ukraine. Likely it'll be U.S. companies. I'm sure those are going to be must connected to this stuff as well. How can we get Ukraine minerals? And again, this is all about money. So we're talking about an investment fund. This is what they're saying here today, just announced a few hours ago.
This partnership allows the United States to invest alongside Ukraine to unlock Ukraine's growth assets, mobilize American talent, capital, and governance standards that will improve Ukraine's investment climate and accelerate Ukraine's economic recovery. The Development Finance Corporation will participate and help to establish this fund in collaboration with the government of Ukraine. Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term. It's time for this cruel and senseless war to end. The killing must stop, and both the United States and the government of Ukraine look forward to quickly operationalizing this historic economic partnership for both the Ukrainian and American people.
Now, what's interesting, I just wanted to play you the video, is that they actually fade out at the end of this, right? But there's an additional part that was actually part of this speech that's on their website, but not included in the video. And I don't know why. I'm just telling you, I don't know why they would have done that. I can make guesses, but I don't know why. Because if you actually go onto the Treasury website, this is the full statement that was just read. And at the very end, there's an extra part. It says, and to be clear, this is the extra part added on the website. And to be clear, no state or person who financed or supplied the Russian war machine will be allowed to benefit from the reconstruction of Ukraine. Likely that you could argue that's a message to maybe North Korea, maybe a message to China, who has been, both North Korea and China have been rumored, or I don't know the right to say it, because these are sensitive talks. I don't want to get anything wrong when I say this stuff, but I know North Korea sent troops to Russia, and then China's been still working with Russia, even though other countries have been placing embargoes or canceling deals with Russia. But it's a complicated issue because Russia, countries in Europe have still been relying on Russian energy. Now, what could be going on here is with some sort of deal with Ukraine. Is there also some sort of agreement with Russia that we don't know about? Possibly. But certainly this is a divvying up of Ukraine's resources, and then on top of that, will Ukraine's security be established? Are they going to join NATO or not? Russia obviously doesn't want them to join NATO, and you get in a whole bunch of issues with when you bring up this kind of stuff because it gets complicated. But at the end of the day, whenever I see the Trump people making these sort of plans, and I see Bessent, talking about money and funds and investment, I just know they're looking for, to make them and their billionaire buddies rich. That's kind of what this is all about. You'll get the sense the more you read on this stuff. It's always the same with these people. This is another one. Fox News is talking to our trade rep, Greer, which we talked about in the last video. This gives you an update. First graphic. So I want you to pay attention to the graphics here. It says trade negotiations in South Korea, meeting with the U.S. officials today. Watch a little bit of this, you'll see.
How do you describe it, what this policy really is about?
Well, it's about responding to decades of unfairness that have resulted in a massive trade deficit.
Right there what I want you to see too. So they put up a graphic of Australia. First they show their meeting with Korea, then they show Australia. It says trade negotiations Australia. U.S. has got a surplus with Australia. Then they talk about reciprocal tariffs. Now, Australia made a response to this. You could call it accusations if you like, or basic lies by the USA. They made a response to this about 3 weeks ago, something like that. Listen to Australia's response regarding, basically, USA is putting tariffs on Australia. This is what Australia has to say.
The unilateral action that the Trump administration has taken today against every nation in the world does not come as a surprise. For Australia, these tariffs are not unexpected, but let me be clear, they are totally unwarranted. President Trump referred to reciprocal tariffs. A reciprocal tariff would be 0, not 10%. The administration's tariffs have no basis in logic and they go against the basis of our two nations partnership. This is not the act of a friend. Today's decision will add to uncertainty in the global economy, and it will push up costs for American households. It is the American people who will pay the biggest price for these unjustified tariffs.
So I want to make this clear, guys, and every time we do these things, I just want to make it really clear. I'm an American, okay? I may be Asian, but I am an American, and I get it. Sometimes people look at me and they'll say, oh, you're just a Chinese communist channel. And it's just like, basically, they're just making racist comments, to be very frank. You see that quite a bit. I do YouTube every day. I see it all the time. And, you know, I try to show you different countries, right? Because unfortunately, at this stage of the game, you can't trust what's coming from the U.S. government and the Trump people. You can't. So in this, you know, issue, unfortunately, this is how it is. Australia is more truthful than USA. I hate to say it, but you can't trust what Trump says or any of his people. So basically, you know, you can go to the U.S. website, or actually, I'll show you this as well. This is like, it's all related. This was in the Korean news today. Our headlines were, Trump says he heard Samsung will build massive production facilities in USA, okay? So Trump, like, he just says stuff all the time. Okay, so where's this Samsung, you know, massive production facility or whatever? In our news, there's no mention of it. like if Samsung was making this massive investment in USA, it literally would be in the news. But that's how you have to treat this stuff these days. Is that's just what Trump said. It doesn't make it true or not just because he said it. And then regarding the Australia thing, you can go to the Department of State. This would be on the USA website. You can look up our trade agreements, free trade, and it lists it right there. Australia being the first one on the list because it's letter A, right? Korea is also on the list. So countries like, say, here in Korea, our news is different than, say, the U.S. news, or maybe Australia news is different than, say, the U.S. news, because the leaders are like, guys, we have an agreement in place. Why are you throwing tariffs on us? You are insane. But unfortunately, you have a population in USA that, you know, only watches your Fox News or your right-wing YouTubers, and even some of your left ones that don't tell you the full story. And it's frustrating to no end, guys. I've said it so many times, and I just have to repeat it because it's an important issue. You can have a different opinion than me. That's completely fine. But I'm not just going to make random stuff up. And unfortunately, we live in a world where, you know, if someone's got a big platform and they tell people what they want to hear, then they get bigger platform and basically can just have license to make random stuff up. And it's extremely frustrating. It's hard to deal with. It's like, how do you address the lies every single day? But one thing I will say is that we have a great community. We have a very smart community. And I do appreciate you guys' comments, and especially internationally. I think that is really, really beneficial to our community compared to, you know, many other places. Because again, don't just look at one outlet. Look at several, and you know you'll get a fuller picture of what's happening. That's why I try to show you guys as much as I can. So I do appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you for your thoughts, and I'll catch you all in the next video.